My name is Mindy Tay. I am the editor-in-chief of Marie Claire. Marie Claire is a very unique magazine. We're 21 years old this year. It's our coming of age. I'm very, very pleased to be here today because for the first time in this series of luncheons, we've had men here amongst us, right? So can we get a big round of applause for the guys who are here? Obviously, you know, we got you guys here for a reason. We're here to hail you, not bury you. We're here to support our men, and we want to hear from you. Azure Zion is no stranger to anyone here, really, right? So he's a publisher, DJ, and host, and he's going to talk to us today about educating our men. A couple of things that have been happening on social media and to prompt conversation. One of it was this disturbing thing about a yoga instructor who got hit by her colleague. Did you guys hear about this? I get all my news on FB now, so I'm sorry. But she apparently got hit on the face by her colleague, alright? And she was told by her employer to forgive the man because he was having a hard day. So that's something to think about when you guys are talking. Firstly, this session would not have been possible without the sponsorship of our dear sponsors, GC Watches. So the good people from FJ Benjamin are here. Please give them a loud round of applause. Thank you so much for supporting Marie Claire and for understanding that this is extremely important for everyone, really. This series of talks is all about encouraging debate, conversation, stories, because the more we talk, the more we hopefully find solutions. We did find some solutions throughout all these discussions that we've had, and while we may not be able to implement some of them, it kickstarts ideas for others, and that's of paramount importance. Without further ado, can I please invite Azure Zion?
So I got this call from my oldest friend, Sherilyn, maybe about a month ago. So I've known her since primary school, so from age 6, and she said, hey, Ezra, do you want to come to this casual event? Marie Claire, just do this every once in a while. Everybody comes and has a little bit of chit chat, food, drinks, it'll be fun. And like, oh, but we also want you to speak about something. And it's like, oh, like, and what would that be? Oh, I don't know, I think the topic is educating our men. And then I was like, whoa! It's like the most loaded WhatsApp message I ever got. And then, of course, I wrote back Shirley, like, what does this topic mean? Because I'm going to the lines, then speaking about this issue. Then I had a quick chat with Mindy about this topic, and it's funny because I think when I first got the call, my headspace about speaking about this whole idea of educating our men has taken a bit of a different turn because of recent events that have happened closer to my community at the radio station, where a female colleague has been subject to death and rape threats because she had an opinion about some state enactments happening in Atlanta. Guys who feel so strongly about the same things that we all do about when it comes to issues facing women and girls, be it access to education or opportunities to work and all these issues related to security and safety, making sure that they are free from just all the despicable things that we're seeing in the news today. And what was fascinating was that when we talk about issues like gender inequality and feminism really in the context of what it is today, it's just gender equality. And then when I told my guys, like, dude, do you believe in gender equality? Like, yeah, dude, you sexist as well. Like, so it became a lot easier to talk about sort of feminist issues within that sort of guise. Men are the way they are in terms of their sort of traditional mindsets and views, because for the longest time we've been in a position of privilege or ignorance, or that it's that. But the point of view of not being able to understand just even the most simplest thing gives you sort of an idea as to where and how far the conversations are at the moment and how close they need to be. And the other thing that sort of came to mind when it came to this whole topic is, I guess, a huge deal about male pride. And male pride is something that is very unique and weird to like the male experience. It's you can think about it within the context of like a sports culture where you need to win, you need to grab that, you need to have that, you need to take it on team, you need to dominate, and a lot of that sort of attitudes stifle into the homes. It goes into the workplace, it goes into these kinds of areas, and nothing has been addressed to say, hey, maybe that's not so right.
I spoke to a couple of friends who were brought up by single mothers, and when I told them that we were going to have this talk, they were extremely supportive, and they went, "Oh, this is fantastic. Please tell the lunch that it's our mothers who did this," and they taught us it's okay to cry, it's okay to trip and you cry, it's fine. I will sit with you and do homework with you, I will nag you, I will, whatever, but to change your mindsets towards women.
The other thing that, it's hard, like speaking about like men and women, because really I can only speak for myself and my experience. And I've tried to look internally towards my own family about, how come my attitudes are shaped in a particular way and how much have they changed and all that. And it's funny because you have this whole discussion about gender roles and all that kind of stuff, but the thing that at least I've tried to sort of acknowledge within my family is that it really wasn't about mom being at home and taking care of the kids, or dad sort of doing work and all that kind of stuff. It was really just not gender roles, but like gender purposes. Like if mom had to go for a meeting, it'd be dad that would be at home making sure that So this whole idea, especially, I don't know how many waves of feminism there are, but like it's this whole idea that women are better than men and men are better than women. It's reductionist, and so there needs to be some sort of movement for, well, we're all here. How do we complement each other in making sure these, I guess, functions and try to create an atmosphere where everybody's contributing towards that.
Exactly, I totally agree.
Hello, everybody. My name is Serena. It's written right here. I was, until I lost my job, a radio DJ. No, I didn't lose it. Please don't have a negative impression of me. I actually just read an article about Kate Blanchett, and I posted that on Facebook. And it really just, reflects how we think about the whole gender thing. To me, it's not about gender equality anymore. Right now, it's 2015. It should not be equality. It should be equal already. So a few years back, a radio station started a concept of being all women and how we should be all equal. And I went, oh, wasn't that a bit passé, So the point that I'm trying to make is we're not feminists. I'm a humanist. I'm an equalist. And this should not be an issue anymore. Like the Delhi thing breaks my heart.
One of the big problems we have is the stereotyping of genders, is the lack of respect, of understanding, of open-mindedness. I don't necessarily think that fathers make worse mother roles. Women can't do the jobs that all those sort of things. Those are the issues. I've been in relationships with no female figure, for example, and I think that the dynamics that you get in there are just as difficult to navigate as you would get from any other kind of relationship. So I think the whole point of gender bias is one that we need to go beyond. But I think one of the other problems is that we are swimming against the tide, especially with this topic, especially in this part of the world, especially in this country. we are taking massive jumps backwards for every tiny step we take forward, and it's something that we need to address. So hopefully today we can go a small way towards doing that. Thank you.
Very nice.
Mindy, it's so good that you are bringing the guys in here to speak up so we can find out what exactly is it that, how can we work together? Like,
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, right?
I love
Okay.
that.
All right.
My family, we had 2 brothers. I'm the eldest, only girl. 2 brothers. My mom was very unconventional. So that conditioning, the upbringing was, we eat together, we wash plates together. You sweep the floors together, and then if there are any so-called boys punya chores, we all do it together. So I grew up thinking that was what it was like all the time. So it was quite a rude shock for me later on to find that, you cannot do like that. Tak boleh, perempuan tak boleh macam tu. So it's like, wah, dan like that, So I think that's how I've raised my daughters also. And I get complaints from them saying, Ma, why did you raise us like this? Because we always kena. Because, when they got, they say, why you, and first place, of course, the tudong thing, how come your mother pakai tudong, you tak pakai tudong, and things like that, But I've always told them, okay, the thing is, you have to stand up for yourselves. And I would say, I have a friend who has 3 sons, and she raised them the same way, as in, you be yourselves lah. Be yourselves, as in just mutual respect. Yeah. I don't know this notion about boys and girls. Yeah, physically we're different. Excuse me, physically we're different. But when it comes to aspirations, when it comes to emotions, when it comes to a whole lot of other things, very human kind of things, we're really very similar. Yeah, and I really applaud Marie Claire for doing this, especially this topic, educating your men. It's wonderful to have all of us here, but I think all of us are already converted. Yeah, just I was telling Mindy the other day, maybe I don't know how, where we can bring this further. And really get down to, talking to somebody who will have a problem talking about girl things or talking about boy things, So maybe, I don't know how, but maybe let's, if you continue, then maybe that will be wonderful, yeah. The how, yeah, because it really upset me when I read this case about the rape in Delhi, that video. I've not watched it yet, but the thing is, I read when the lawyer, the documentary, then lawyer, it's okay, it's not so okay if the lawyer supported, and he said that in our culture there is no place for a woman. Oh my God, that really got to me. So the only thing I could do was to tweet him and say, I pity your mother. Yeah, I'm really so sorry. Yeah, but educating boys, all. We have to educate both. Summer. Yes, it's teamwork lah, guys.
The core of being a feminist is not in your action, but it's inside you. To, to get what you want, to be real about it, That is what feminism is about.
I think the scene is changing, and I'm a proponent that, gender, you don't discriminate as long as they can do their work. Thanks.
I did PR for a bunch of leagues that have come, had their matches here and all that jazz. And it really is no playground for women. Okay, especially when we're dealing with football media. Even though you do the PR, they're like, I don't want to deal with you. You're a woman. This is football. And they seem to be highly strung. So even if you want to come into that for, okay, I'm a woman, I like to play sports, okay, I happen to be doing PR, okay, yeah, for a certain brand who's right now sponsoring a certain football league, they come in, they beat you up. Because why? You're a woman. It's easier to bully you. I'm not getting this interview, it's because of this woman. And I'm like, hey, buddy, if I was sleeping with the whole league, you get your exclusive. But I'm not, So it's kind of tough tapping onto football and being a woman.
I'm the deputy editor of Marie Claire, and I'm so happy to see male faces here today because I refer to myself as the women whisperer because I work for a women's magazine, and whenever I twiddle my thumbs, a woman will appear and she'll be, of a certain stature and all that. And it's very interesting because listening to people who come from the corporate world, men who work in a male-dominated industry, and seeing that women are starting to get into the industry, because coming from the fashion industry, we work with a lot of women, and women of a certain caliber. my boss is a woman, and her boss is a woman, and our biggest boss, our big boss is a woman. And in this industry, it's very common to see a woman at the top. But I'm so glad to see that it's starting to change in other industries as well. So I'm quite interested to hear from people who are outside of the PR and the media and fashion industries to see how the men there, I don't know how the attitudes are changing from a lower level as well. I mean, because management level, yes, you may be very evolved, but I'm interested to see maybe who, people on the ground, how do they view women coming over, and sometimes they even probably think that women are taking over their job. All these men who are working SMIs are married to graduates and doctors and very, very educated women. So that's something to discuss as well, especially people like Zachary and Sashi who work in a very male-dominated industry and see people on the ground. Zachary's like shaking his head and saying he doesn't work in a male-dominated. Well, most of Silicon Valley is still a lot of men, right?
Senior lifestyle writer, and also the resident rainbow unicorn of Blue Ink, Marie Claire. So I'm no stranger to getting people, say random nice things. I really like your hair, blah, blah, blah. And I'm cool with that. Like, it's really nice to hear that every day. But then there's also like unwanted attention that you get as well. And I think rainbow hair or not, women know this. When you walk down the street and you see a group of guys around, you're like, okay, there's this second of dread, because the minute you pass them, they're gonna be like, they might look. Yeah, exactly. And if you've been to Blue Ink, you know that right next to us, there's an automotive college. So there are all these boys who hang out by the road and with their cars and their music and stuff. And they'll do the wolf whistles. They'll stare at you. I've had one guy go like, hey, just now, something just happened just now, And I think we are all brought up to say, like, just ignore it. Just walk ahead, just ignore it. And I see that all the time because our office has lots of, like, really fashionable, good-looking women. And I see them walking and they're always, like, head down or, like, just ignoring these calls. And I think that just encourages these guys to just go on, and they continue doing it. So I started doing an experiment, and one of the days these guys were making wolf whistles and stuff, and I just stopped and I looked at them. Because you've got my attention, what do you want to do about it now? Do you want to have a conversation with me? Do you want to ask me out? What, So, and then I actually saw the guy stop and then he hid behind his friend. So, I mean, you could say that you're asking for it. I don't know. They might come back to me and say something else. I don't know. But I don't think we should just walk away and ignore it. I think that's also education. It's maybe not as extreme as other things, but it starts from there. I don't want to know. I don't want to be worried about what I'm wearing or if people are going to look at me a certain way. I don't think guys go through that.
What I'm sharing today actually has no bearing on Google. It's my own personal experience that happened before I started working, just to clarify. We all talk about how things happen, like stereotypes happen with the older generation, and say like maybe other people haven't had a chance to travel as much as we have. But this is something that I experienced with my own peers who were Western educated around my age, like late 20s, early 30s. And when I was talking to them, they thought it was perfectly okay to ask a woman, like in a job interview for a corporate job, do you have a boyfriend? Are you gonna get married soon? Because I'm looking for someone who I know, we're really short on staff, so we're looking for someone who won't go and get pregnant within the next few years. But yeah, and it's like something that you would expect, or maybe this is kind of bad, but it's like a little bit more acceptable if it happens to someone in an older generation where they had more but these were people who were my generation and who were educated in the UK and the US and Australia. So that was just like really shocking.
So my name is Rahayu, right? So when I make a phone call or send an email, people can't hear my voice, they don't hear the accent, they don't see me. And the first reaction that people tend to have is, oh, ni gadis Melayu kampung mana ni? Right? So I remember actually going for my checkup at a gynecologist, right? So I went in and the doctor hadn't seen me yet. And I went in after she reviewed everything. She's like, oh mudanya. Oh, actually you look very Chinese. I was like, where's this coming from? How many Rahayus do you know that berbaju kurung from a kampung? Like, quite frankly, right? Because it's a very Malay, very, conservative old school name, right? But I get that a lot. And I don't get that just from the guys, I get them from young females, right? People who make an assumption based on something they interpret. And I think that's something that you tend to hear in general. Like where, there's a lot of things that we learn from a community perspective where, the abengs and the alian labels and the old rumpets and whatnot, and you associate that with a certain picture. And I think what we have to be careful about is when we are talking to other people and people that we have not met yet, or even situations, we take a step back to sort of analyze the first assumptions that you make about that meeting, about that person, right? So whether it's a female, it's a male, you would be surprised if you take a step back and just think, what are the assumptions I just made about this person because of their accent, because of their gender, because of where they come from? It leads to a lot of then stereotypes that you just automatically come up with and go into a conversation with that, right? In the industry, in IT, it's true. It is still very male-dominated. Has anybody heard of Gamersgate? Gamersgate, right? So it's the video gamer community is very male driven, but it's got some there's a lot. It's like 40% of the population is actually female gamers. Very hardcore, love what they do, but get a lot of flack because they're female. And so there was a game designer who came up with this wonderful game. It's an indie game that was about depression, right? So it actually illustrates how it's like to be about depression. Nothing that is gender specific, but she started to get the same kind of things that Aisha was getting, like, this is a stupid topic, you don't know how to design, I'm gonna rape you because you're so stupid. Like, so that whole, if you just look at #Gamergate, you're gonna find a lot of crap that's out there. And that's an industry thing, right? Which we try to chip away at, but people go to the extent of hunting, and you have to remember, these guys are hackers, so they know where to get their information, right? And they'll use it against you. So those are the things that we have to work against. One, to educate people, get the girls to know how to code because they're going to have to start hacking their own information. Number two, also just to teach men that that's not okay. There's one gamer who actually went and hacked for one of the boys that tweeted about her. She hacked for his phone number and called his mom. So there are ways around this. But it's about education. It's about reminding somebody gave birth to you, that person was female most likely, and it's not okay for these things to happen, and to speak up on behalf. So the He for She campaign, awesome thing.
We have to keep on educating in a very nice way, not antagonistic. People think that if you're going to correct a wrong, especially if you're a feminist, you're going to burn bras, whatever. No, sayang, no. If you're antagonistic, you close doors. We want to keep the doors open so that we can negotiate and we can talk. It's about, like you say, being equals, and equals means we talk nicely to each other. Yes, we have to. And one of the things, going back to movies, one of the reasons also, like, that's another good way where you can also reach the masses through your scripts and all that. My point is the masses. One of the ways is I talk to many young people, I don't say women, but no, the men too. And my appeal to them is, if you can, turn down roles that make women as victims. Kalau boleh. That's one of the reasons why my daughter has turned down so many. Don't glorify. Yes, to show that something is not right, you have to show. Like, for example, if you're going to be a rape victim, but there must be a reason. There must be violence. There must be a reason for it, not just glorified and without a reason. Not. So even for script writers, when I talk to young script writers, I keep on telling them, like, please, when you write something and you make women victims, the ratings will go up, but think about your mother, think about your sister. Kalau adik awak jadi macam tu, awak suka ke tidak? Oh, tak suka janganlah tulis. Not something like that. But I think, because sometimes I feel like biting the heads off, I feel like slapping them, but if I do that, then that's it, I close the door. They're not going to listen to this makcik anymore. Okay? So this is another thing that maybe we can all do. We all educate people in our own ways. Tak kira whether through talking to young people who are script writers, or even to badgering editors and to be fair with the fellow editor. Actually, we wouldn't have gotten anywhere if he hadn't wanted to listen to us. He was open. The fact that we badgered him was one thing, but if he had decided, if he was going to play the I am man, I put my foot down, I decide thing, then nothing would have changed, yeah? But yes, it takes two to tango, memang.
I always tell people, like, I believe in the feminist cause, but some feminists, boy, I just can't hang with them, right? Because they really kind of alienate you, right? And it's unfortunate. So you kind of need feminist or equalist representatives to kind of, be able to, change their messaging a little bit, maybe, perhaps not to be so antagonistic, because, research shows, and sorry, Google, right? We're big on data and stuff. If you like someone, you tend to listen to them. If you dislike someone, nothing you say gets through, right?
My personal experience from that was, it happened to me because I was walking back from the studio after a shoot and minding my own business, and basically one of the guys from the school was on the back of a motorcycle with his friend, drove past and then started making catcalls and whistles. I didn't handle it very well, I must say. I actually put up my middle finger. Yeah, I did. And then I thought, he would have just gotten offended and then maybe they'd driven off, laughed about it or whatever. But instead, he got his friend to pull over to the side of the road. He got down and he actually came up to me and he started making obscene gestures. And then I just looked at him and okay, whatever, little boy. And then I started walking past him, and then there were these other boys from the school. So I was just walking in between them, and he kept going on at me. He was because I was ignoring him, he kept following me, and he actually followed me to the office, and the rest of the guys did nothing. But I just walked near them because I knew that he's not going to do anything anyway. So yeah, that was my story. I mean, he pretty much harassed me just because I reacted or showed him a reaction that he was not expecting.
Sherilyn, that's a great point, because the point you mentioned was you went into a group of guys knowing that these men, those two boys, would not be brave enough to intrude in that space. So what Kenya? So we talk about our little world being so close-minded and sexist and blah blah blah, but it has taken Kenya to come up with a solution, and it is an NGO. Have you read about this? There's an NGO in Kenya who is trying to empower boys, schoolboys, and to teach schoolboys to help women stop rape. And it's brilliant because they start from very young. So all the boys will come and help and be brave enough to stand up to, say, a man, a grown man. So all boys will come, try and stop. I screen capped it because I thought it was fascinating. What a great solution, because at the same time, you're teaching them from very, very young that it's not right when a woman says no, or a girl, because in this instance, there's a lot of child rape happening in Kenya. But to also encourage a community effort, because you can't do it alone. You need the help of many. And then, even better, all these little Davids going up against one Goliath. It's brilliant, and they all feel strong and brave enough to help and do something. They don't feel helpless. I think when they interviewed a little boy, he said, I feel scared. If I see my sister being pulled away, I feel scared because I'm alone. But when they start mobilizing, then it becomes, a first step to a solution.
Hi, my name is Nick. So essentially, I want to share a bit of a story that I had with my friends. So a group of my friends, they are what you would call typical lads. So these lads, they come from very lad culture, and they really objectify women. Well, it's not representative because not all of them do. But the ones that do, I actually found it really offensive. And I actually said to him once, I said, a girl walked by and it's like, oh, just check her out. And he was basically almost about to catcall, and I kind of said how would you feel if someone did that to your sister or your daughter or your mom? And he's like, Nick, I'm going to educate my daughter better than that. And I said to him, by saying that, you're saying that it's all right that your daughter gets saved because she was educated and not for another girl to get raped. So like, if the other girl gets harassed, then it's fine. So I said, it's not that you have to educate your daughters well, you have to educate your sons well, to be a gentleman and to not rape women and, just be very normal about it, like, equality. And it's, today, there are a lot of really, really moving stories, and I just gonna feel slightly overwhelmed because being with my group of friends is quite hard for me sometimes because I'm not a feminist. I don't claim to be a feminist. I'm just human. I'm just normal. And it's really hard to like try to hammer it through to their heads. And like, Audra, Shakila, like they know some of my friends and they know what they're like. They're very laddish and they come from that kind of culture. But, like I take it as a personal goal to like educate them one at a time. That, like this is not the way.
So there's the Kenya thing. You mentioned the computer game. And now, another way, because I really believe in starting very young. Start them really, really young. Marvel has a female Hulk and a female Thor. Yes, somebody else is going to be female. Robin. Batman's Robin is going to be female. And they are doing this in spite, currently lah, because got many different universes and whatnot. But for them to promote this says a lot. Conversely, Wonder Woman is being played down, which is crazy because Wonder Woman is the first feminist comic hero, but there are small solutions that we can do, very small steps, and hopefully have building blocks. I mean, Syed, you talked about evolution, right? Like way back when my dad wouldn't even pick up a diaper, right? And now you've got, fathers doing everything. Amy's husband is an exemplary husband, right? Exemplary because he does everything, right? Which is brilliant. So it's little evolutionary steps. Thank you so much for coming. Do keep us in mind when you want some reading material.